Good afternoon and welcome to our budget hearings. I'm Bobby Wilson. I am councilperson for District 1, represent the North Side Strip in downtown. I am joined by Councilman Charlin and okay, no one's online. And then also our budget director, Peter McDevitt. I first want to have up, we're going to do two today, and I think maybe we have to recess between, or we can just do them.
We
one.
can just roll into it.
Yeah, so if we're going to do them probably back to back here, we're going to do city planning first, then PLI. If we could have everyone who is daring enough to come to the council table from city planning, please come up now. Daring enough? Yeah. You said just do two jokes, so I'm like just trying to fill that in the intro. Then
You ready for my spiel?
so I'd like for so remember we'll just all have to introduce each other before everyone starts talking. But let's start with Peter. If you could go over the budget that you see for city planning.
Thank you, Councilman. The mission for the Department of City Planning is it works with partners to plan and deliver a vision for the city's future grounded in a just transition. A quick overview, the Department of City Planning is divided into the following bureaus: Integrated Planning, Public History, Art and Design, Strategic Planning, Sustainability and Resilience, and Zoning and Development Review. There is a total of 57 full-time positions in the 2025 general fund, which is an increase of 1 from 2024. There's an added GIS analyst. There's downgrading of 1 vacant principal planner position to a senior planner, and promoting 2 planners to senior planners. Overall, that is an increase of $190,000, or just under 5%. And a quick summary of non-personnel changes in the budget. Overall, there is a just over a $4 million decrease in non-personnel funds, and most of that comes from the decrease for the one-time costs associated with the comp plan. In the capital budget, there is 1 line item for the Department of City Planning, which is the 1% for art for $100,000. And then there is a couple of trust funds that the Department of City Planning has access to. The first is the Green Initiatives Trust Fund, which is used to promote energy conservation and efficiency, including but not limited to implementation of findings from the Green Government Task Force, energy audits for city-owned facilities, LEED certifications, terms and conditions of local, state, federal grants, capital improvements to city-owned facilities, and also the Open Space Trust Funds, which may only be appropriated for the acquisition and development of open space, park sites, and recreational facilities within the area of a development project. Funds would be utilized by the Department of City Planning and or Department of Public Works. And they have a number of fees in the fee schedule outlined for you there. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Peter. I often feel like he's like going through everything, that we see on our end, and then we'll learn some more details from your end as well, obviously. So let's do that now. If you could all go right down the line here and introduce yourselves, and then I believe you have a presentation.
Yes, we do.
All right, great. Then we can get that going after introductions.
All right, I'm Jamil Bey. I'm the Director of City Planning.
Andrew Dash, I'm the Deputy Director of City Planning.
Sharonda Watley, Assistant Director of Strategic Planning.
Kevin Kunak, Assistant Director with Public History, Art and Design, to be renamed Public Realm in 2025 budget.
Good afternoon. Corey Lehman, Chief Zoning Officer, Assistant Director, Zoning and Development Review.
Lisa Ray, Department Administrator.
Flor Marion, Assistant Director for Sustainability and Resilience.
All right, thanks. And then you're already set up?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Ready to go.
Take it away.
All right, so our presentation is relatively brief. I said a lot of what we have in our budget has already been presented. So just quickly want to go through some of our 2024 accomplishments, introduce and describe a little more about since we have completed a strategic plan and are adopting just transition principles, wanted to make sure that we, reintroduce that to council, talk about our mission and strategic objectives, and our current and future staffing needs, and our budgets. And this, since we have some time, a little bit about where we are with the comprehensive plan. All right. So from there, we've been pretty busy in 24. We hosted 55 dams across the city. We sort of led off that, thank you, led the preparations to kick off the city comprehensive plan. So we started with phase 0. We've been engaging with our consultants and some of our city partners for the last few months. Finished the soil PGH composting pilot. Worked on over 8,000 applications to date, ranging from property certifications to major developments and master plans. Developed a transit-oriented development report, which looks to implement the city's housing needs assessment by proposing rezoning of lands within the 1.5 mile watershed of PRT's fixed guideway transit lines. And we've worked with council to draft and pass legislation to facilitate single-unit attached residential uses in single-unit detached districts, and draft and pass legislation to simplify the process for childcare uses. And we're ongoing work to expand the new zoning districts to a portion of North Oakland as identified in the Oakland plan. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the strategic plan. This is work that started before I did, and so I'm going to let Andrew talk about that process.
Sure. So, and we worked with City Council as part of a broad group of kind of stakeholders to develop a strategic plan for the department. Really, this is to be able to focus us internally, to be able to update our mission statement as who we are, and provide a roadmap for the next 3 years as we undergo the comprehensive planning process. And so that strategic plan, as it shows on the screen, includes kind of updating our vision and mission, talking about how we anchor the just transition and all of the work that we do, create the foundation for the comprehensive plan, think about how we work together with other departments. There's a lot of planning's work that really is, although we may be working on a project, it really is, interdepartmental, collaborative with not only the other departments, but with our communities and our external partners. So, defining how we do that, thinking about how we are able to innovate and provide leadership around, new ideas when it comes to land use and planning, and be able to focus on our own staff as well, and think about how we, update policies, procedures, and, kind of work on professional development of staff. So we did complete that work in August of this year. We did, as a part of that, also begin to create the strategy framework for the just transition, which is here on the screen, which is really, how we, not only through the comprehensive plan, but through all of our work, focus on, those who have greatest need in our work. And so thinking about that through, kind of these, 4 pillars of, an equitable redistribution of resources, social and ecological well-being for all, regenerative economies and life-affirming work, and retaining our cultural heritage as kind of those 4 pillars of, again, all of our projects, how we focus those, to be able to work in a just transition framework. And so as a part of the strategic plan, it really did lead us to, to changing the mission, which is reflected in this year's budget, which is, as it states, that we work with partners to plan and deliver a vision for the city's future that's grounded in a just transition. And the 3 primary objectives as to how we do that is really, to work to enable, not only ourselves, but the remainder of city government and all of our partners to be able to advance that just transition, to create a center of excellence in terms of efficiency and customer service, and to create a shared sense of pride and responsibility internally as well as externally. That leads us into, our staffing. I'll turn it back to Director Bay.
All right, so knowledge, we have what I believe to be a pretty large staff, but there are some gaps in in achieving where we want to go. But with the staff that we have of these 50-plus positions, we do have a few vacancies that we're hoping to fill. And, we've talked about the need to retain talent when we have folks that are really doing well, how we can support those folks. So there are some that we've identified that we'd like to promote. And, we have this one need that is going to be beneficial as we think about a comprehensive plan, as we intensify our community engagement, and that's an in-house GIS analysis, somebody who can help us with some of that data that's embedded in our department is our only ask for staffing. This was already noted in the opening. Our operating budget from last year, over $9 million, down to $5 million for this year. Most of that comes from the one-time expense of the comprehensive plan and the then increase in the personnel costs of 3.9%. We have one capital budget item, and that's in the percent for art. Those that were already began in the last cycle in Hazelwood, Beachview, Hill District, and the University line, those are in process. And the one new one for the 25 budget is in Manchester. And so those are the items that impact our budget. But we also wanted to talk a little bit about where we are with our comprehensive plan. Alexis from our staff has been reaching out to council to try to get some one-on-one appointments with each of the council offices to sort of lean in. Sharonda and I are hoping to come and visit and talk more intensely with individual council members and their staffs about the engagement and the priorities that are in those districts. We've been meeting with the consultant team to sort of put together the protocols, the decision-making trees, and sort of thinking about how we're going to people the various committees and work groups for each of these. And so our timeline, which we've adapted or adopted, we're in the middle of phase one now, and the teams that we've been meeting with are sort of understanding what has been the history of planning, the history of engagement, what are the current conditions in Pittsburgh that we need to address, and then we're going to sort of kick off intensely late January, early February, and continue that through April as we're sort of building that framework of operating, introducing that language to your teams, introducing that language to the community groups and our partners. Before we get to what we've been calling the summer of engagement, it's going to go from May through July with a little recess in engagement in August, and then back through September, where we are sort of getting this out into the communities during Pittsburgh's, our summer's festival season, our community engagements, we have those opportunities to really intensify that. But we want to touch base with you beforehand to make sure that we are hitting aligning this with the work and the goals and priorities that you have in your individual districts. And then from the 12 months after that, beginning in what we call 12 to 20 months, August of 2025, starting to do these scenarios and sort of imagining, put what we're learning together to these what-if scenarios. And this is really a really powerful values clarification exercise that we'd like to do publicly. And, as an example of what we can do with these, back in 2017 at Urban Chem, we were doing these what-if exercises across the city. We were having these conversations, and it was just a pie-in-the-sky kind of question. What if, as a region, we committed that every child that grew up in Pittsburgh was able to take care of himself and his family by the time he was 25? And after having those conversations around the city, this birthed the Pittsburgh study. And so the folks that were engaged sort of were thinking about the power and just that imagining question. And so now what this team is going to do is for that to identify some of these other themes that pop up that are values in our city and sort of do that imagining, what if, just to sort of think about what do we really value. And so that part of this exercise of the comprehensive plan is really going to be a powerful tool for us to aspire to be the best city that we can be. and that's going to be a pretty intense period before we then wrap this up in the summer of '26. And we can talk more about the comprehensive plan as you need to, as you have questions. But we're not all comprehensive plan. Other work that we're doing in '25, we're going to continue to implement the H&A through zoning changes, implement fair housing recommendations, working with the building resilience in communities to think about how we can improve our, reduce our vulnerability to landslides and flooding. Our composting project continues to expand. Revisions to Title 11 and the historic preservation, expanding the percent for art program, and working on an all hazard mitigation plan, and continuing to streamline the permitting process through DCP and DOMI, and continuing to implement our strategic plan. We haven't talked a lot about the all hazard mitigation plan. That's not any budget request. We're expecting for FEMA and NOAA to help support that, but I had a challenge from an official in FEMA who asked us, Pittsburgh is the only city in the country that he knows of that has more than 200,000 people that does not have an all hazards mitigation plan. And so he challenged us to think about that. The opportunity here is for us to identify vulnerabilities and risks, put a plan to address those, and then that makes us eligible for NOAA, FEMA, EPA dollars to mitigate those plans. Currently, we don't have one. And so that's an important thing that we're talking to the county about, what that looks like and how we work on that. So that'll be a big part of '25, but that's not a part of this funding. That funds will likely come from federal agencies. And that wraps up what we wanted to present, and we're going to open it to you now.
Great. Thanks for the presentation. And all right, so we're going to go to questions from members. And Councilman Charlin, we will begin with you.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. And thanks, Planning Department, for being here. Appreciate your attendance on a Jury Friday here. Wanted to start. Sorry. I think that one of the things we all want to talk about is the comp plan. This was the first hard vote that I took as a member here. Spending $6 million, knowing that we're teetering on bankruptcy right off the get-go is not an easy thing to do. But I appreciate some of the updates you've given, but I want a more holistic update of where we are right now with the start of the comp plan. I can speak for myself, and I know for other council members, we are very much in the dark with a plan that has been talked about and is probably the most expensive thing that we're doing short of like bridge upgrades. What has happened between then and now, and when is council going to be brought back into this process?
So let me do that, the second part of the question first.
Sure.
So we are asking, my assistant has reached out to each of the council districts to sort of get on the schedule, to make sort of rounds, to sort of bring you up to speed, to answer any questions. And so we're hoping to get those things scheduled in the next few weeks, so that we can, sort of answer that question and align it to exactly what's happening in your council district, and, what you see as the city's future. We had the consulting teams came together, was it in September? In September, they were here for a few days, and we sort of laid out the framework for how we're going to engage, what those timelines look like, and I said, one of the slides that I blew through quickly had sort of that timeline on it. But what we're in now is phase 0, which was sort of setting up those rules. Then we were looking at starting an engagement around this holiday that's coming up, this was going to be a challenge. And so we decided that the formal engagement part would begin in January. Is there any more to add to that?
So formal engagement with council members?
With council member. Well, the first part of the engagement, Sharonda and I would like to come visit you and your team to sort of give you that download and answer your individual questions. But the formal engagement that includes the council, that includes the consultants and the other members of the team is going to begin in January.
I do worry that for I've been saying it's like the Mercedes-Benz level plan, that this has been so slow getting out of the gate. Did we buy a junker here? And I'm very worried. I've been skeptical of the comp plan from the get-go. I've been skeptical of the price tag, and I'm not hearing that this is something like that. This was such an urgent thing for us to spend money on. It doesn't seem like there's a level of urgency right now to get this up and running. Am I wrong on that?
Well, I'm not going to say wrong. I'm going to say that maybe you're not considering all of this. Considering how complicated it is, and considering that we have not had a comprehensive plan, so we're not updating a previous plan, we didn't want to jump in before we had everything in order. And so the time that we're spending now is sort of building that infrastructure for a successful launch. So when the consultants were here late September, and was thinking, okay, well, what would it take to get meetings on the schedule? Okay, if that's looking like late October, we get started in late October, then we have 2 months of holiday season that would sort of interrupt that momentum. And so that was a part of the holdup, So it was the combination of this being really big, really contentious through council, they said, it's a lot of money. I'm not saying of course it is. But all of those things together sort of delayed the process. We weren't contracted as early as we would like to have been. And so as we're sort of sequencing these things, this seemed like the right order.
The delay in the contracting?
Well, it was a slower process than I would have liked.
On whose end?
Can you speak to that?
Sure. Hello. Good afternoon. Sharonda Watley, Assistant Director of Strategic Planning. So it took us about 5.5 months to get both contracts through the city's process. And we did go through a very robust process to get both of those contracts through at the same time. We did work very closely with the consultant team, as well as with OMB, as well as with law, as well as with the mayor's office. And so what I'm being told is that 5.5 months is actually pretty quick for contracts of that size. So that did take a sizable amount of our time from earlier this year once we were approved through council. So that did take quite a bit of the summer. And so both contracts were completed and executed in mid-July, and we were able to start to have those kickoff conversations in mid-September.
Okay. This is not helping my fears here. This was a really hard sell for the community to say that we're going to spend this amount of money in a time when we're all talking about, potential of going back into Act 47. And then hearing even that we are in mid-July, that we're good on the contracting portion of it, that we're still not having public meetings. I'm getting asked from both community leaders and from reporters, where are we on this? And if we're gonna spend this level of money on something, we got to get moving. We got to show value. We can't be having conversations about the budget crisis when we spent $6 million and the planning department is not moving forward on this. It's just, it's not acceptable.
Would you like to go through the slides of the timeline? Originally this was proposed as a 2-year process.
Yeah.
And it said it's still on track for the process that you adopted. The proposal that City Council adopted was a 2-year timeline. And so if we look at 2 years from July when it was contracted to they're still expecting to finish in August 26th. This is what you paid for. This is what you understood as a timeline that the consultants presented. So this is not like the timeline has suddenly shifted.
And it's not the finished product. I mean, I want to see the
Right.
finished product. Again, we're paying for Mercedes here.
Right.
I want a
And
Mercedes.
so if
But I
something
wanna
this
see something in
complicated-
production.
Something this complicated, $6 million, the team's under contract in July. Okay, by the time you buy your flights and get back booked to come to Pittsburgh, it's September.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't, okay, now who are we meeting? Met with the council president, met with the mayor's team, sort of to get it, all right, what is it, what are your goals? What makes sense? How should we engage? Okay, it's Thanksgiving. It doesn't make sense to start an engagement process around the holiday season. So I get the timing. So had this started and had we finished in May, we probably would have had a window. But if we think about the windows of opportunity to get something done, it would have set us back to start now with a robust engagement process that's then interrupted by 2 months of holiday season.
And we appreciate your sense of urgency on that. We've also been getting phone calls and inquiries and different things like that. Some of the things that we were able to do over the summer were some light engagements. And so we were able to go to community meetings, City in the Streets, community festivals, wherever was appropriate for us to start to share about the comprehensive plan. One of the things that we really wanted to be mindful of is our approach to community engagement, and we did not want to rush that through a holiday season. And so again, we do understand the sense of urgency and the desire to really display what this city can do in terms of planning and visioning. And so we appreciate that. And so we have that same sense of wanting to get out there and starting to really engage as well. And also, we are able to come to any community meeting or community gathering to learn more, to share more about the comprehensive plan. And so my staff has been able to do that, as well as some of the assistant directors here as well. And so as folks are becoming more aware through our Engage PGH page or through other word of mouth and other forms of communication, we have been able to meet that need as well.
And just quickly, your concerns are definitely justified. I'm not saying that that's unreasonable to question this timeline. But as, you know, as a community person, I would be where you are thinking, like what is happening here? But if you know, just looking at just the unfortunate, like where it happened in the calendar, didn't play toward a kickoff yet. And we went back and forth about that actual thing around the holiday season. What would a mini kickoff look like, you know, to check that box? And we just thought it would be better to let's do this in January.
Well, I do wish that we would have waited on voting. If we would have known that would have been the timeline for the kickoff, I wish we would have waited on voting for this. And I frankly, I don't think I would have voted for it. So your professional services budget decreases by $4 million. What is happening there? Your budget in professional services.
So the $4 million that was paid for the consultants for the comprehensive plan?
Is that what that is?
Yeah, that was the one-time cost for the comp plan.
One-time cost. Okay. All right. You also are adding a 7th senior planner. What is the role for that individual?
Senior planner position, is that the one in Kevin's team?
So there were some shifts in, you know, we can probably ask, you know, some of the assistant directors if we want. I mean, there was a shift to 3 positions to reprogram them. You know, one was actually a downgrade of an existing vacant position from a principal planner to a senior planner, and then an upgrade of 2 planner positions to senior planners. And you know, we have, you know, determined kind of for budget requests, you know, a series of criteria, you know, one being around the tenure of the staff person, one being around what level of work that staff person is doing compared to their position, you know, and so, you know, and, you know, the third being kind of, you know, work that they're doing kind of outside of their current position. And so, you know, in these 2 cases, you know, did see that there was a need for 2 planners, you know, that are on the team, to be moved up to a senior planner to fit the work that they're doing, one in their communities and one on the development review side.
I think that there's been, I won't say which member, but another member and I have been having a lot of discussions here. I'm in at least 80% of my community meetings personally. My planner, I think the world of. He's in most of those meetings with me as well. But we also have someone from neighborhood services there. Depending on where we are, we usually have someone from Zone 3, from public safety there as well. And for the most part, those three individuals are kind of creating or giving the same information. It's very rare that there's a whole lot of daylight between them. What really is the role of these planners that are going to community meetings? How are they filling 40 hours?
It's Sharonda who coordinates the neighborhood planners.
Hi again, everybody. Sharonda Watley, Assistant Director of Strategic Planning. I lead a division of neighborhood planners, urban designers, and engagement staff. And so our professional planners fill a very specific and unique role in our department as well as on behalf of the city. So our neighborhood planners are responsible for neighborhood plan and plan implementation for each of the neighborhoods that they have. So each neighborhood
What if a
planner,
neighborhood doesn't have a neighborhood plan?
So
Like
each
the majority of mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So beyond neighborhood planning, our neighborhood planners are often in coordination roles as well as collaborative roles with other divisions and other city agencies. They also play a role in different policy, different land use decisions. They play a role in RFPs for like project proposals and different things like that. And so it is a professional position that takes into consideration the community's population, demographic shifts, as well as where there is a development need. A lot of times our planners are not only looking at things like parks and stormwater and where new housing needs to go or new retail and different things like that. They're in those conversations. I can't speak to what neighborhood services or other folks are sharing at those meetings, but our neighborhood planners play a very specific role in those conversations.
So as an example, Thomas, I'm assuming that's who you're talking about.
He's fantastic.
Right. And so Thomas provides a lot of support, for, at least the two community meetings that I attend, for Charlie Ellison at the Knoxville Community Council and for the Belt-Hoover Consensus Group. So what are the issues that you're working on? Where are those roadblocks? Okay. Then sort of connecting them to services and opportunities that exist, McKinley Park, for instance, and some of those challenges. Thomas has been able to sort of where are the other opportunities and resources to get what the community is asking for in those spaces. Some of the housing issues around the Belt-Hoover school district, and what they're working, some of the infield that they're talking about right there. Thomas is giving Ms. Cash-Wade a lot of, sort of background support. Here's how we could think about this. And so the presence and listening what's happening in the community meetings gives them an opportunity to sort of troubleshoot where some of that, where the resources might be.
And I can also say, my team, Zoning and Development Review, works with the neighborhood planners across all development applications. So every time there's a pre-app, we have the neighborhood planner there. They are the bridge between the developer team and the community groups, whether they have an RCO or not. And so that's a very large service that they provide, and they continue on and try to stay on top of all of the community process, both formal and informal, that happens around development. And then, I could use Thomas as an example. Thomas is engaging with me and my staff regularly as an interface between community members who have particular questions or neighborhood groups who have concerns around a development, need help, translating why the zoning code does this. And so it helps to have that bridge, because our team doesn't have the capacity to go out to every community meeting to be to be reviewing plans and also out and engaging in that way. So it is an important and unique role. And another example recently is we had one of the neighborhood planners facilitate a conversation around a very charged development in the East End with a lot of history, and just to begin that process and facilitated a conversation that was a difficult conversation between community members and organizations that had felt that the process didn't live up to the standards the last time around, and wanted to get in front of what a future process was. And so, having the neighborhood planner be able to be a part of facilitating that conversation, bringing people together, work directly with the council person, and kind of begin to build a bridge to a much better process for the next time around. It's a critical role.
I think one of the things I'm hearing as we're going through all the other departments and really hearing some real needs and some real lacking space for some additional roles, that I do think there is a role for some of the neighborhood services and planning to be streamlined, and to find some efficiencies there that we don't have much development south of the river. We're not investing much south of the river, so we don't have some of those concerns that might happen in the East End or elsewhere. So maybe there's a place to move in the future there. I do want to ask about the GIS staff position that you're looking to bring in. Mm-hmm. So we have the GIS department in INP. Is that not something you can collaborate with, or is this a swap for this person, or is this just an additional GIS individual in your department?
An additional position.
Why couldn't this just be a swap from INP's GIS?
Yeah, so the idea here is that this is a hub and spoke model where centralized data is going to be with the GIS team at INP and the work there. This going back a number of years, this was all within the Department of City Planning because of the needs relative to a lot of the work around land use and having kind of dedicated staff doing GIS work and GIS analysis as a part of their work. There is obviously some work that we get from INP's GIS team, and they are great, and they're very they're helpful as much as they can be, but especially with the comprehensive plan coming up and the needs for data and mapping around that. This was something when we did our strategic plan that was noted as the highest priority for staffing for the department. That it was a need that the department presently did not have, and this is similar to. Although not fully named as GIS analyst, there are positions doing this work in a number of other departments that are in innovation and performance as well, as we were looking through this. So, whether that's people doing more of the crime analysis stuff, in public safety, or whether that's, some of the positions in DOMI and DBW, there are positions in other departments that do kind of operate as, those spokes to the hub, for data and for mapping. And so this position would be doing that for city planning.
So it's an opportunity to have someone embedded who's solely focused on the needs of the planning department as their expertise, rather than someone, so that allows that person then to also be more creative and to think more in detail, rather than just a request that we might send to INP as to, hey, can you give us this information?
And they'll still be managing the quality of our data. They'll be managing, our data as a part of the entirety of the data that the city manages and collects. And so, new data that would be created by, potentially by this position would be feeding back into that, and would have a strong collaboration with the GIS team in INP, but would be focused solely on working through a lot of the land use permitting, kind of other analyses that we need, not only through the comprehensive plan, but through the work that all the divisions do.
Yeah, it also continues to irritate me that although we paid all this money for the comprehensive plan, that we also have to buy more things for the comprehensive plan to work. So, that continues to, I don't think that is a wise investment on our part here. I think it's going to cost more than $6 million is what I'm hearing. All right, that's all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your time here.
Thank you, Councilman. So we're going to go to Councilperson Warwick. But before we do that, I just want to recognize that we are also joined by Councilwoman Teresa Kell Smith.
Sure. I actually don't have too many questions. I guess just on the comp plan, I'm looking at the phases, and I'm not totally clear on the difference between phase 1 and phase 2. If you could explain that, just with regard to the timeline,
Sure. Hi, good afternoon again, everybody. Sharonda Watley, Assistant Director of Strategic Planning. Sorry, I gotta list my slides here. Hold on for just a second. So phase 1, what we've entitled is collecting, validating, and affirming. And so this is where we are documenting existing conditions for all 19 of those topical areas, which is very, very important to understand where we are right now as a city with all of those areas of focus. And so a lot of the work that the consultant team is doing is reviewing past plans and studies, as well as developing engagement strategies around phase 1. For phase 2, this is synthesis and alignment using a just transition framework. And so much of the work here is to really begin to think about the challenges that the city is facing, and also recommendations or potential recommendations and ideation around those challenges using the just transition. And so this is where we are not only understanding the data, but we're starting to analyze it to begin to tell a fuller story about what's going on in Pittsburgh.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of wondering, with the timeline, because I was sort of wondering that too, is, why it's kind of taken so long to get off the ground. But at any rate, I guess I was just sort of surprised to see that your operating budget in the end is only $5 million total, which sounds like a lot, but isn't really that much for a whole department. So.
No, it is not.
No, it's not. I kind of had it in my head that it was more, but it's not. It's a pretty small amount of the budget. I do see for some of the kind of major initiatives, that we have the zoning changes, the fair housing things. Those are of course still pending. I won't use the time to talk about that. I think that but I will say I think that we need to have some more robust conversations around that, because there's, I would like to see the fair housing initiatives move forward, but I think where we are now, we are not at a place where they are able to move forward. So I hope that, we can all work together, council members and your team, et cetera, to get us to a place, and it will mean compromise, I'm sure. But I'm hoping that we can get to a place, because I think there is a lot of good in there, with some things that need adjustment. So it would be a shame to throw the baby out with the bathwater on that, right? But I just hope that you all are ready to sort of knuckle down with us on council and hopefully get to a good place on that. I don't really have any other questions, I don't think. I guess I would like to see maybe a little bit more, again, with with our planners, with our neighborhood planners, a little bit more definition maybe around those roles, as far as like what is the deliverable, You know what I mean? Like when I mean, it's great to have our planners at the community meetings and all of that. It's always nice to have representatives from the city, you know, in the community meetings, but also to kind of like to what end, right? Like what is the deliverable, whether it's to the council office or to the community or to you know, to other departments in the city, to kind of have those, and it may be different for each planner and each community, I don't know, right? But to, at least for those folks to have, you know, their own, like, these are the things I want to have completed by the end of 2025. You know, I think that would be helpful to kind of clarify for folks what, you know, what the role of the city planner is. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilperson. We're going to go to Councilwoman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone. I know it's been a long day for everyone, including our cable bureau, so I thank them for their work today, too. But I just want to mention the fair housing, the zoning bills, and I do want to say that, so for the public's edification, that, first of all, they're not fair housing bills. We're not out of compliance with fair housing. We never have been, and in fact, this city council has strengthened those laws by adding additional classes for protection. So I want to make sure that's clear. And second of all, we were working with the administration on some of these things, and then it was my understanding a meeting took place with an organization who now has a nice little ad on. I'm going to share it on my Facebook page so people can see it. So, but what they want to do is say that we are not supportive of housing, or I personally am not supportive of housing and helping people. Nothing could be further from the truth. I want to help people. I have spent my life helping people. I don't talk about it. I don't go on social media. I don't do things just so I can have some agenda and a paycheck. I have done it before I was elected. I'll do it after I'm elected. And what I'll say to all that is that the thing that makes me so angry is I feel like people are exploiting the unhoused population, the immigrant population, and anyone they can to get some zoning laws changed. When the fact is, if they spend this much energy having communication with the public, they probably won't be in the situation that they're in right now. So that part goes to my questions with city planning. I think that I'd like to know how you see your department engaging with city council and our constituents, with us, not around us, and to make sure that you are engaging the members and letting us know what's going on in our communities. I think I've seen more employees being hired and less communication with council. And so I'd like to know what your idea is of moving forward and how you see the planners working with council members, updating us on what's going on in our communities. Not that we just have to go look at some app that you have together, but that we're actually having conversations and working collectively together. Director, can you address that?
Yes, I can. Thank you for the question. And building on to what Councilwoman Warwick said, like it's going to be different with each neighborhood planner and each community and each council district. But as we said earlier in our opening, my assistant is reaching out to council folk individually. Is that word? Council folk? Council persons, council people, each of the council districts, so that we can have a one-on-one conversation with you, myself, your team, and one or two of the assistant directors to sort of better understand how we can do better, what's happening with the comprehensive plan, what that engagement's looking like, how it aligns with your goals and what you see as your priorities in your council district. And so, that's a part of, what we're hoping to do in the next couple of weeks. So
So I do hear you saying that. I did hear you responded to the council members, and I appreciate all their questions. They have some, obviously great questions. They always do. But my concern is I don't want us to have different responses. I want us to know what we can expect. If this is what planners do, this is how they should be working with you. And if not, this is the recourse. And so, because I don't know that I necessarily see benefit of having this many planners if I'm not going to have any communication with them. If there's, I couldn't even tell you who my new planner is because I did have Thomas and he was great. And then I had Nancy and she was great, but she just left. So I'm not sure who the new one is yet. And I may have heard, I just don't remember. So I don't want to say that's on you. That may be on my memory. But I would like to know who the planner is and what we can expect. But I want to be honest, this has been an issue with me since before this administration. This has been an issue since I first got here, that I always felt like city planning ran independent of city council in a way that you worked around us instead of with us. And so I don't see a value in funding an entire department that works around council instead of with council. Now you may have, with different administrations, you may have different relationships with different council members. I've been here through 3 mayors now, and I know it's different with each one, and I notice the differences. And so for me, I just think more consistency across the board would be nice.
And I hear you and acknowledge that, and I'm going to, I said, I
They
know.
do every year. They do every year. They hear me every year at budget time, acknowledge it every year at budget time, and nothing has changed.
Well,
it's been the same thing. But I know that you're a change maker, so I'll wait for you to change.
I am
something,
going
okay?
to still, even though you said you want to hear all of council, I am coming to visit you individually.
Okay, good.
And we are going to talk some more about this. I need to hear from the folks, and I need to learn what we need to do and where we can get better. Sometimes that's easy in an open setting, and sometimes that's easy in small groups. And so
can I say it's not always just city planning. I think it would be nice to know how city planning and the URA even collaborate. And I mean, just how
that's
all
a
our
different
departments
meeting. That's not
collaborate.
the one that I'm proposing. I'm coming to see you.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. But I'm saying, in general, I would like to see how the URA, city planning, and all our different departments collaborate and know what's going on and how that we can all work best and stop duplicating the services. As Councilman Charlin mentioned, I see a lot of people at meetings that maybe, that all pretty much share the same type of information. Great people. I think they're all wonderful, but it would be nice to know that maybe we're streamlining some of that response into the community, that we're not wasting public dollars trying to get messages with the same message being delivered.
That
That's
makes
all.
sense.
Thank you very much for your work.
Sure.
Thank you all for your work. I look forward to the hearing on Wednesday evening. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And that leaves me. That was the second joke. So Charlene wasn't here for that. All right. I just want to get some specifics under my belt here. This is this one position. Can you just remind me, I know there were some questions about it. Can you just remind me what you said about, actually, no, let me take this from a different angle. If you didn't have this position, what would you do? What would happen?
We would be slower to respond and adopt, and our analysis would not be as robust. And if you can think, if you think about the reason that council is wise to have its own budget analyst, we could rent out a budget analyst, and we could hire somebody. Hey, can you analyze this budget with someone?
I didn't come up with that idea.
Someone who is committed to, hey, let us help you understand it through your lens and your needs, is more valuable than an analyst for hire. So rather than, and so that for me is the most valuable part. We could do this, but not as efficiently or as effectively or as thoroughly.
Okay, great. Thanks for answering that question. Next one is on the land bank. I know chairing the land bank and working closely with the land bank and their disposition of property. Can you help me understand there's someone that signs off in city planning on property? It's been kind of news to me that that's happening. Can you explain what's going on there?
I don't know anything about the land bank. No, I'm joking.
I can maybe respond to that. So yes, there is, with transfers of property, there is a sign off by both the Department of Finance and the Department of City Planning. That is, many times.
Is that in the contract? Is that in the agreement?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that it is.
In the land bank,
we have an agreement that was passed here at council. some maybe a year ago.
Yes, and
You're
the Department of
familiar.
City yes,
The,
and
the,
so,
for the transfer of properties.
yes, and so the review is usually simple, which is that it is, kind of looking at if there are any adopted plans, that, are relative to, potential transfer and,
What do you
that-
say, adoptive plans?
Adopted. So we have our neighborhood plans that are adopted as a part of the comprehensive plan. Once the comprehensive plan is complete, we will have an adopted plan that will look at those. And, just to give one kind of counterexample, there was at one point in time a proposal for a transfer of land in the Manchester neighborhood, and it was for a utility use in an area that was identified in an adopted plan as something that should have been residential. And so, planning at the time had to, point that out to the entities that were going through the disposition process. This is not the land bank. This was with the URA. For this one, this was a few years ago. And I, flagging that so that, that was noted at this point in time before the transfer continued. And then there would be a community process around a development that would be, against the plan that was completed for the community.
So who signs off on that?
Those letters are ultimately, I believe, signed by the director, but are reviewed by staff, by neighborhood planners, or by our vacant property planner, dependent on what type of application it is.
And
Is there a way we can speed up the process since you all want to be involved? I mean, because I'm just looking at this reality, and there's so many hurdles for the land bank, and so we just want, the only thing really I'm going to start asking is just that departments are just very friendly to the land bank and that they want to be a partner. Not saying you're not, but I think showing that it can happen a little quicker is going to be essential. I don't even know. It's just the fact that there's this other step. There's all these other steps, and there's probably some ones we can let go. We're talking about.
So is it the review process or the signature process?
We're talking about a structure that's already there, and we want to make sure that, maybe we have some understanding of structures that are there that we're gonna we just move them along. That's not even something it has to be a sign off. But if it's a large piece of land, okay, that sounds reasonable to make sure that there's not some big development that should be going there that somehow the land bank is trying to move one little parcel out of that.
Yeah,
I can definitely get that. But for structures, I'm unsure of any neighborhood plan that would say, yeah, eventually that building's supposed to be torn down.
Yeah, so I definitely think that's something that we can continue to look into. Our vacant property planner does, kind of coordinate the, kind of an internal vacant property task force that includes not only the land bank and the URA, but our finance, real estate, law, DPW, some of the other kind of internal city agencies that work in various aspects around vacant property. And right now we've been trying to meet internally to be able to work on the disposition process. So I hear your question. I think we are also trying to make sure that both we are cleaning up our data, because I think there's a lot of old data that have a lot of properties in our system that are city owned or 3 taxing body owned that are tagged for various uses, that ultimately those tags can go away. And I think we're working right now to try to update a lot of those files and update a lot of our data. But then I think there's a lot on the process side that we're trying to work through as well as a part of this process. So,
okay, well, if you can...
So I definitely hear, the concern, and I think we would agree that, trying to be able to facilitate a process so that, these, especially vacant structures, that those aren't, that
you hear my concern,
obviously the longer there's inaction on vacant structures, the more likely they're going to be things that the only possible outcome is potential demolition. Right. And obviously that's not what communities are asking us for. That's not what communities are want. And, and we do now with the land bank and with others, have people or have organizations that have more opportunity to take these properties on than we've had in the past.
Great. Yeah. I mean, the more red tape we can cut, the better, less bureaucracy, the better. So can we, so we'll be moving to PLI here in a second. There's another couple questions I just want to understand. There are open positions. How many? I've been asking each department this question. How many? Are there any unfilled positions that you have?
I believe we have two presently. One is vacant presently because we are actually looking through this budget ask to to reclassify that as a lower position, which is the principal planner that's presently in our public realm division, which would be centered or focused on on kind of managing our public art program.
But downgrading one from vacant principal planner to senior planner.
Yes.
So that position isn't filled.
That position is presently not filled. We were waiting for this budget to pass to then be able to fill that position. And then I believe we have one planner position in strategic planning, which we have gone through interviews for and are in the hiring process right now. So those are the only vacant positions that we have in the department presently.
Okay, thank you. Next, the last question I have was just like, where are you all located now?
Where are we located?
Ask us that question again on Monday.
We began our move. Officially, we're in on the 19th. We're hoping to get in on the 18th, but we still have some issues.
Get in where?
412.
412, okay.
Boulevard of the Allies. Some issues that need to be resolved, but we're out of the 100 Ross building.
Okay, you're completely out of Round and Ross. So
Yes.
currently everyone's remote then?
Yes.
Okay. And then starting on Monday, people will start bringing their stuff into the office. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we've already started to move most of the stuff to the office, but right, the people are bringing their personal items to their desk on Monday, and hopefully some of those small details will be worked out. There's a couple of hiccups in this space.
Yeah, first and foremost, at that building, you go there and you got to wait for the security guard to look at you in the door and then open it up. So I go there every now and then. So that'll be your first hurdle, is getting in the front door.
The first door, the one all the way to the left, you have to pull it a little harder. The second one, you get bussed in.
I'll tell you what.
The third one,
it's
you
good.
get through
It's
the
good.
security desk.
Good notes. I don't know. There's still something about getting in the building still, it seems, but
We'll start holding our public hearings and in the facilities there.
you will. Okay.
Brand new
So
hearing
that's
room.
definitely going to be.
Yes.
And then they would go through these doors that it looks like the FBI Center now with the glass doors that individual
I know for
slots, like the subway. It looks like it's going
We'll
to the
have
subway.
we'll have to figure out operations for board and hearing meetings or board and commission meetings. But I noticed yesterday for the URA board meeting, they had somebody there that was able to let people in to make it a little bit more accommodating.
Yeah, definitely with the public coming in
Right.
to the front there. That seems to be present challenge. Yeah. Okay. Those are the questions I had. Thanks for being here, and
Thank you.
good
Thank
luck
you,
with
Councilman.
everything. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, we're just going to move right into PLI because is that? Let's let them get in here. Yeah.
Let me get my water.
All right, so we're gonna get right into the next hearing. We have PLI at the table, and while PLI is gonna get settled in here, do you have a presentation?
Yes.
Okay, there's fine. That's fine. We're gonna have, yeah, you can hand it around. Here we are. So for this hearing, we have, obviously myself, we have Councilman Bob Charlin here, and, okay, sorry, I was just checking online to see if anyone joined. And we are blessed with Peter McDevitt, our budget analyst, who will then now go over the, basically it's like your synopsis of what you're seeing in the budget for PLI. Please continue with that. These great analysis that you have.
Thank you, Councilman Wilson. The Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections' mission is to improve residents' quality of life by increasing the safety of the built environment. A quick overview: the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections is separated into four divisions. Construction Division, Code Enforcement, Licensing and Administration, and the Systems Operation Division. A quick position summary: there's a total of 121 full-time positions in the 2025 operating budget out of the general fund. That is an increase of 1 from 2024. There's an addition of an assistant director, systems operations, the eliminations of 1 system operations supervisor, change in salary for a floodplain administrator, an addition of 1 inspection supervisor, and the consolidation of former titles into new titles of combined maintenance inspector. Overall, that's an increase of just over $714,000, or a little bit under 10% increase. A quick summary of the non-personnel changes in PLI's operating budget is there's a overall $30,000 decrease in non-personnel items. Most of that comes from a $25,000 decrease in professional and technical services, and there's also a $5,000 decrease in property services from 2024 funding that was in the budget for the move to the 412 Boulevard of the Allies building. In the capital budget, PLI has 2 different line items for remediation of condemned buildings that total about $4.7 million. That comes from PAYGO and CDBG funds. And there are a handful of trust funds the PLI has. The Code Trust Fund, which is for expenses to buy copies of the code for city customers. The Demolition Trust Fund, which has expenses incurred by contractors for the demolition of condemned properties. The PLI Record Storage Technology and Operations Trust Fund, which has expenditures for any and all expenses associated with the retention of records which are submitted to BBI, now PLI, for permit purposes. And the One Stop PGH Permitting Technology Trust Fund, which has expenses associated with the One Stop PGH permitting platform for ongoing maintenance and enhancements to improve customer and user experience. PLI has a number of fees in the fee schedule. There's the synopsis of those for you there, and that is my overview.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to PLI Director and your staff. If you could introduce yourself and then get right into your presentation, that'd be great. Thanks.
Sure. I'm Dave Green. I'm the Director of the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections. I also serve as the Building Code Official.
Hello, I am Alyssa Belen, the Assistant Director of Construction at the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections.
Hello, Monica Bender, Assistant Director of Licensing and Administration, PLI.
Sorry, give me a second. Okay. So just a quick overview of what I plan to present. Overview of PLI, some performance data from the last year, capital budget overview, overview of our fees, overview of operating budget, and a recap and a sneak peek. So overview, Current structure of the department is 3 divisions: the construction, licensing and admin, and code enforcement. We regulate development, business and trade licenses, and building and property maintenance. There are a total of 120 positions in the 2024 budget. And then an overview of how PLI's role matches with the city's vision of a safe, welcoming, and thriving Pittsburgh. Permit and code enforcement equals safe buildings. City-funded demos equals blight remediation. In terms of safety, for welcoming, we focus on customer service excellence and workforce that is representative of city residents. And in terms of thriving, systems that work for all customers, and then equitable and uniform processes. So to jump into some performance data, this is an overview of the value of construction for the permits that we issued each year. The green line is total, the blue line is commercial permits, the yellow line is residential permits. And you can see the last 2 years, 23 and 24, a significant increase in the value of construction. And then this map is an overview of the issued permits in across the city. A heat map showing darker green is the highest value of construction, lighter green the lowest, and this is for a period from October of 23 to the end of September. And then next slide are issued permits, the number of permits, similar to value. The dashed lines indicate the projected number of permits. So we are on pace to maintain a permit volume that matches pre-pandemic volume from 2019. And then this is a map, similar map, showing the concentration of number of issued permits across the city for the same period. And then in terms of digging into some specific data for each division, the construction division reviewed approximately 12,000, performed 12,000 reviews. SLAs is our service level agreement or period in which we agree to perform a service. And during this period, we met that SLA 99.9% of the time. And then we are beating the time frame that we identify between 30 to 50% of the time based on our average reviews. And then construction inspections, we performed over 31,000 construction inspections, and then over 5,000 code enforcement inspections for construction or development. In our licensing and admin division, reviewed over just shy of 27,000 applications from development, licensing, and property certs. And then in terms of the customer first service functions, averaged 80 chats through the one-stop PGH portal a day, and then 31 calls from customers daily. This map shows violation type, majority violation type by neighborhood, so whether it's building maintenance, or a construction violation, or a vacant building violation. And then for our last division, the code enforcement division, looking at the volume of complaints. So reviewed, sorry, I think some of this data might be off, apologies. So a total of 43,000 investigations. Of the complaints that come in from 311, 60%, we were able to confirm there was a violation. Of the ones that we issued a violation for, 52% were resolved by the third investigation, and then another 33 were resolved after we began the court process. And then this division also performs periodic inspections to look at specific aspects of a property. So fire and life safety is looking at those systems in a building. Dead end cases, those are properties where we've confirmed that the owners are deceased, and then child care facilities. And then this is an overview of the proportion of scoring for our condemned structures on a rate of 1 to 4. 1 means there is no evident structural issues. 4 is where there's a situation that is life-threatening or serious injury or death can occur at any time, and about 9% of those are 3 or 4, so the larger share are 1 or 2. And this is a map of the condemned structures. And this was a snapshot as of the end of October, showing concentration across the city. The next map shows demolitions completed within the period of October of last year to September of this year, and the number of demolitions in those neighborhoods. In terms of the capital budget, it includes $2.5 million of CDBG and $2.2 million of PAYGO funding. And we estimate that this would allow us to demolish between 35 and 50 non-emergency demolitions, and then between 10 and 20 emergency demolitions. And then a couple notes about our fee changes. We're proposing a modest increase in the calculated base fee. This is calculated based on the value of construction. So for commercial permits, this is going from $6 to $7 per $1,000 of construction. For residential, from $5 to $6 per $1,000 of construction. And then another note, to balance this out, we are also looking to eliminate the certificate of occupancy fee if you pay the base fee. So here's a table of scenarios based on average value of construction for those type of permit. And as highlighted, there are some instances where while the base fee has increased, the fee under our current fee schedule and in the 2025 fee schedule are either identical or you may actually save money. And so those include a renovation, if it also includes us approving use for a commercial structure, and then building a new house. And lastly, similarly for a house, if we're renovation and we're approving a use. And then some additional fee change impacts, looking to eliminate charging the certificate of occupancy fee for signs. So while the base fee may go up for most sign applications, the overall fee should decrease. And then for our pre-application meetings, our current fee schedule has a flat tiered fee, and this led to some unintended consequences where for permits that had a value of construction that was just over the threshold, they paid a large fee. So for example, a $55,000 project under our current fee schedule would pay $900. Under the proposed, it would pay $138. So hoping to connect projects with this important service, make sure it pays our fees, but is proportional to the work. The fee schedule also includes a nominal maintenance fee for fire alarm and fire suppression permits to cover our maintenance costs, or costs to ensure that these systems are properly maintained. And then caps on our residential and commercial building permits. In terms of our operating budget, one of the key things we're asking for is a new division and a new assistant director, systems operations division. This position would replace the system operations supervisor. The division duties include internal focused management and updating of systems operations. And this crosses the department quite a bit, and it includes our one-stop system, development licenses, code enforcement, our code enforcement system for notices and hearings, record management system that covers development, licensing, and code enforcement. So getting people within the department focused on all of those systems to ensure that they are as efficient and streamlined as possible, and then also increase cross-agency collaboration and coordination. So the systems operations supervisor and associated staff were key in the development of the building development application, which I'll speak to shortly. The budget includes an additional construction inspection supervisor position, and this will reduce the ratio of supervisor to staff from 1 to 9 to 1 to 7. This will ensure that we have better management and quality control, so improved consistency and transparency in the process, and aid people through the installation and construction process. And then lastly, we're looking to create a new combined maintenance inspector position. Currently, we have 2 positions, a fire inspector and a code inspector position. And this new position would perform all of our code enforcement inspections, maintenance, code, license, and fire inspections. It would create redundancy, remove division silos, and increase organizational efficiency. Anticipate that the current fire inspectors would transition to this position, and that the current code inspectors would have the option to promote to this position. And it's partially supported by the proposed maintenance fee on fire alarm and suppression system permits. And then a quick recap. Some pretty big moves in the one-stop PGH portal. In March of this year, a big step forward, updating the user interface to make it more streamlined and easy for people to access. Also includes ADA compliance and language translation integrated to the system based on Google Design standards, some improvements to the DOMI permitting, including the ability for applicants to select street segments. And then in June, we launched the building development application. And this combines and replaces the building permit and zoning application. And this is focused on removing needed expertise on behalf of the applicant, streamlining the process, increasing compliance, and having more inclusive access to the external development team. So one of the biggest pain points we heard from applicants is prior to the BDA, it was a one-to-one, one applicant to a permit. This now allows an applicant to add additional people to have access to it. And really this is a huge step forward for DOMI, PLI, and DCP collaboration and partnership, and really focused on holistic cycle of improvement. So not looking at things individually and linearly, looking to continually assess, develop, and implement new improvements. So some sneak peeks. The one-stop PGA counter at 412 Boulevard of the Allies opens on Monday. This will allow residents to apply for, pay, and obtain business and trade licenses, development right-of-way and fire code permits, and planning applications. DCP, DOMI, and PLI staff will be on site to assist applicants and answer questions. And then our residential housing rental permit program, voluntary compliance will start in mid-December, and full enforcement begins in June of 2025. I think, yep, that's it.
That's it. All right. Exciting stuff. we're going to go to members, and we have Councilman Charlin. We're going to ask you to take it away.
Thank you. Chairman.
You got to call me Captain.
It's Friday.
Like a ship, you know.
You are leading the ship here, yeah. Director, I also first of all want to thank you for always meeting with us and connecting with us. A lot of the questions I would be asking in a lot of the other budget briefings, I think, are things that you and I have talked about in our previous discussions, and we don't need to belabor a lot of them here. So I want to thank you for being transparent with that and always willing to work with us and kind of hear my dreams for your department and not always tell me I'm crazy. So I appreciate that. I also, I just want to acknowledge, I feel for you having to present when you have a cough in the back of your throat. Is something that I have had to go through here, and there's no reprieve, and it sucks. So just thank you for toughing that out.
Okay.
So
appreciate that.
The first thing I want to acknowledge is that One Stop, the counter is going to open on Monday.
Yep.
And as you know, this is something that I have been a real thorn in everyone's side about, really adamant about this happening. I think this is incredibly important. I cannot be more excited about this. If you want to talk about that at all, but the other point on that, the question that I do have is, in terms of efficiencies that we're going to see from your department and from the city as a whole, do you have any idea of an estimate of what those efficiencies are going to look like from the get-go here? What ways are you excited about your department and other departments becoming more efficient starting Monday?
So in terms of Efficiency Monday, one of two, I think, key highlights, the 3 development agencies will be in the same building and be able to connect and build relationships. Large portions of all 3 departments went through training over the last month, some team building, and then some customer service training. So really looking to build those relationships from frontline staff all the way up to leadership to ensure that there's a comfort level and an understanding of each other as a human to human, as well as role that each individual plays, so that we can work together better. And that's a first step. So once people are actually working side by side in the same space, that's only going to strengthen that, and then allow frontline staff who are seeing the issues live be able to report that up the chain of command and work to resolve these issues real time. Sorry.
No, you're good.
And so I think we're going to learn from our staff and we're going to learn from customers. So the other big win is customers being able to come into and see us face to face. This allows us to have more comprehensive communication. A large percentage of communication is visual. So when we are only communicating via phone or via email, we're losing a lot, and people can interpret that on both sides. So this is an opportunity so that we can see everyone's body language, their tone, etc., and that will only lead to more effective communication and a better understanding by both parties. So I think real big wins there, and because of that effective communication, we're likely to learn things that we might miss from the others. So I think having that input and that means of communication will lead to significant improvements, as well as the 3 agencies working daily side by side.
Great. So, again, I couldn't be more excited about that. In terms of other questions that I had for you, and I actually will be relatively quick here. One thing that recently came up, and it would come up in our next conversation, but you're here first, is we held a town hall in my district last month for some of the HOAs that live in the South Side. And one thing that I had never really considered, but learned a lot more about, was that a lot of these condo buildings are classified as commercial buildings in our definitions, and therefore have to pay commercial fees for renovations that they're doing within their units. And there's a level of this being pretty unfair, as if this was something that was going to recoup fees off of a profit generating property, that's one thing, but this is someone's home, and more likely than not, at least in my district, the people that are in condos are usually like downsizing seniors. And is there any rethinking that we can do, or any work we can do with the way that we treat some of these condo spaces?
And just to make sure I am understanding the nature of the question, the condo buildings that you're talking about are presumably multi-unit buildings?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think fundamentally, from the PLI perspective, when we're referring to commercial versus residential, we're referring to the codes that we enforce. And so the residential code is limited to single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, and townhouses. So a condo building or any other kind of apartment or multi-unit residential is subject to the commercial code. And the reason that is because you increase the risk and safety hazards associated with having more people in a single building. And when it's residential in nature, you have individuals who are going to be slow to respond to emergency because they will be sleeping some portion of that. And due to that, the standards are different. So I would say we do need to regulate them under the commercial code. I think there could be pathways to define renovations that are limited to within a unit, and to treat those differently than we would if it was a wider renovation. I think there's some complexity there in terms of how we get that information from an applicant, but I think that is a distinct possibility.
It was an issue that I never thought about. I mean, to an extent, I understand, an apartment building, something that is generating revenue, I get that. But for residents that are living in condos, the way that it was described to me in the community meeting was like it was persecution of living in a condo building, which is not, I don't think that's how any of us see it, but you can understand the feeling that comes from that. And for a healthy urban environment, we want to support these condo situations. We want people that, had to choose to raise their kids in the suburbs, that want to downsize and live next to a vibrant business district. We want them to live in the city, and we want to encourage that. So I do want to kind of explore some of what those pathways might be.
Yeah, I'm open to that.
All right. My phone keeps locking here. Okay. Rental registry. Where are we on the rental registry?
So we're in the final sprint to launch the program. Training with inspectors. We've developed the application and inspection process within the one-stop system. We are finalizing our review of public comments on the draft rules, and being prepared to publish those final rules to make the legislation effective. We anticipate that would be transmitted to council mid-December, and that would begin voluntary compliance with the program. We're not going to enforce penalties because no one's going to be able to apply, get inspections the same day. Mm-hmm. And then full enforcement would begin in June.
So the program will go live when people will be able to apply for application mid-December?
Yep.
Mid-December, okay. Well, that's very exciting. We're all super jazzed about the start of this. I'm sure there will be hiccups, but I'm sure that we will work through them. So,
Yep.
Cannot wait for that. And that's one of the constant, besides talking about trash, that is the thing that every community group wants to know about that I represent, is where we are on rental registry. Your combined maintenance inspectors, I saw there was a slide on that. Can you go a little further into that? What made this happen? What's the story on this?
So I think probably potentially for the last 3 to 4 budget cycles have included some requests to increase the number of fire inspectors and looking at the cost to add additional positions versus looking at the existing positions we have and the incremental cost to say the body of the code inspectors could promote into the additional position would allow us to give us the capacity for the fire inspection and then also additional capacity for rental registration, code enforcement, the other license inspections, et cetera. So it's really looking to take the same moves with this division as we've done in the other. So for those who go back to BBI days, there was individualized and specialization in the construction division. So the person performing the mechanical inspection was different from your building inspector, from your energy, et cetera. So looking to have that cross training and that flexibility that we have a whole host of individuals who can perform all of those inspections. And then also I take seriously generating development and growth opportunities for our staff. And so I felt like this is a win all the way around, looking to get capacity be budget minded. So adding this increase, having the budget to have a maximum of this number of combined inspectors is more efficient economically than adding additional inspectors, get us more bang for a buck, and then also can raise wages for a significant portion of our department and get them on a path to growth. So I am excited and hopeful that you and your colleagues will agree so that we can really start to take similar changes within this division.
One thing on that, I'm all for more inspectors. I'm also for more inspectors more times of the day. Will this be something that will help us with night and weekend inspections?
It will help us stabilize what we need to do currently and then move to looking to expand services beyond our work hours. So I think one of the things we're struggling with, there are 3 fire inspectors, and their role is to try to get to every building that has a fire alarm and fire suppression system annually, to get to schools and other properties. And for 3 people, that's tough to manage, so we're not doing that well. This will allow us to do similarly. When we modified within this division, we had vacant property inspectors, so there were 3 inspectors who were responsible for condemning structures. We now have 21. So you'll see, I think, big increases on the base of what we do, and then that will allow us to look to how can we expand beyond our standard service at the moment. So I think we can get there, but first need to stabilize and make sure that we can actually meet our current responsibilities.
It just, it is a continual problem in my district that although we may catch you after the fact, you can kind of do whatever you want as long as you're doing outside of normal business hours. If you want to do construction on a property, you start in the evenings. We might slap you with a stop work order at some point, but it's free game for a lot of these places.
So I understand the community concern. I would say the stop work order process and the implication after that is not straightforward for those individuals. So they may think it is easier, but it complicates everything. The permit process is set up to ensure that everyone's on the same page. So the review process is ensuring that the Work is designed appropriately. Inspection ensures that it's installed per the approval, and then the additional code standards that may not be on the approved documents. Once you come in after the fact, like work is exposed. They may or may not have had a design professional to begin with, so then they're bringing in someone after the fact. Design professionals, just like us, can't see through things. So you're going to have to start pulling off materials, or you're paying them more to take liability because they have to use their best judgment, and then they're saying, this is my assessment, and that's a risk for them. So now what might have been a pretty straightforward renovation gets longer and likely costlier, because you may need to at least expose work, and then you may need to remove work. So I would say, yes, it does happen, but it is not an easy process to remedy for those individuals who choose to. Similar to, you can choose to obey the speed limit or not. If you get caught, you're going to pay some money, and it's there are consequences there. You could lose your license. So it may not be a great apples to apples analogy, but I would say we can't control that. I do agree with you. It is worth exploring the beyond the hours. That's a little more complex in terms of the operational implications, to have sufficient staff to perform it, and then supervisor, et cetera. And I think having the inspection supervisor position is helpful. We need to have that ability to support. Right now they're struggling. Supporting 9 inspectors who are looking at almost $2 billion worth of construction active is a lot. So, get that position and the combined position. I think there's a distinct possibility that we can look at changing operational aspects for the following budget year.
I do want to acknowledge, though, that there is only one fire inspector from the fire department from that type of fire inspection. They have one for the entire city. And that is one of their big requests every year, is they need more inspectors. There's some union stuff there too, but they have one person that has to check our entire city out at that time. So
sure.
Not to say that because that person has an impossible task that this other group should also have impossible tasks, but
yeah, and I think the roles there's some overlap there, but there is an opportunity to share responsibility between the two agencies, and I would agree. The Fire Bureau having one inspector is not sufficient to that either.
The last thing I have for you, and this is something that existed in previous iterations, but something I want to start a conversation about again. In the past, Pitt had paid for a portion of a salary of an inspector that could do additional enforcement in Oakland. And that was something that the university was doing for a while, and then eventually previous directors determined that wasn't something they wanted to see anymore. Pitt is interested in having that conversation again, of offsetting a salary for some Oakland-specific inspections. It is my dream, if we can kind of talk about this, that we would have a Oakland-based inspector who was maybe not someone who was like, all the way knew all of the code for everything, but knew a little bit about the code and knew when it was time to call someone for backup, and knowing that, knowing when they needed help, and looking at what that might look like in the future, as something that we could supervise, but Pitt could pay for. They have a strong desire to see that. So I would like to re-engage that conversation as well.
Yep. Not familiar with that situation, but happy to have a conversation and look into it.
Sure. Cool. Have you been able to backfill your position yet? Oh, you did backfill. You backfilled, but now we have
we have
another
an
position. That's
assistant
right. Yes.
code enforcement, and that's taking a little bit because of the process of filling some other positions. And the code enforcement assistant director last description goes back to BBI. Some things have changed in the last 10 years, so in the process of looking at that job description to ensure that it meets the needs for the realities of PLI in 2024. Looking to fill that as soon as possible, hopefully early in quarter one, if not sooner, but it is tough, for sure.
Let's get you a full complement. So,
yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Captain.
Quite welcome. And thanks for coming today. Appreciate your involvement. So that moves it on to, let's see, Peter, would you have anyone online? All right, you're stuck with me.
I wouldn't say that.
As long as you give us more jokes.
No. Too many dad jokes there. So I stopped while I'm ahead. I did want to ask some questions regarding the positions. And I see you got a slide up there. So I see that there's, this is from Peters. Do you have this? Here, take this. Does that match your slide?
Which portion are you looking at? Sorry. Which page on
Position
Peters?
summary, and it goes over
Okay.
total full-time positions. It says you're adding one.
Yes.
And then your slide is, let's see.
So I focus primarily on the assistant director, which is a swap for the systems operations supervisor, and the inspection supervisor position. That's the one new position, and then the modification of the inspector positions.
Okay, so you agree we got the same?
Yep.
Okay. And then the 9.7 increase, which is 714,000. And those are operating costs. Those are your numbers.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
just in salary.
Just in salary.
Yeah.
So that factors in the 3%. And then was there anything outside of that?
There's also non-union positions in there, so it would depend on what those respective CBAs have scheduled for raises, which I don't know off the top of my head.
Wait, that would be. I mean, non-union would be 3%.
Yeah, and then union positions would be whatever the CBA indicates.
Yeah, you're talking about union. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the non-union positions include a 3%, and then
Yeah.
the union positions would be subject to the terms of the CBA.
And that's all falls within the 714.
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Charlotte asked a lot of good questions, especially with rental registry on where it was at. So took care of that question for me. Appreciate that. And then could you go over the question that we were talking about maybe it was 3 months ago now, and I think the mayor highlighted in the speech at the beginning of the week, and that I'm referring to the faster process that is happening for building permits.
Yes.
Specifically on some way that we can help downtown if someone is interested to do a conversion, how that's sped up. Can you help us understand that better?
Yeah, so I believe he was alluding to two things. One are zoning changes that have made specific uses, the process to approve those under the zoning code more streamlined. And then additionally, the building and development application. And that BDDA, or building development application, combines and replaces the PLI's building permit and zoning application, and then includes reviews by all of the development agencies. Those reviews are based on the information the applicant tells us. So prior to this, reviews were sequential. We were manually adding things. So for example, if someone was building a garage, they first wouldn't have to select which agency to apply to, and then which permit. So instead now, apply for the BDA, you tell us what you want to do, and we'll tell you what approvals you need, what documentation you need, and coordinate our reviews and provide comprehensive responses to them, and streamline the process overall, so that looking to reduce the being stuck between agencies and then finding out about, say, DOMI late in the process, or saying when someone's looking to get their certificate of occupancy, oh, you don't have your fire alarm permit, or you didn't meet this zoning requirement, so, or your DOMI permit's not complete. So
when did you start this?
We launched that in mid-June, so we're 4 months in.
What's the response?
So far, good. I think it's a little early to look at any data, but we've had positive feedback from our partners. So we meet regularly with outside agencies, the American Institute of Architects, AIA, Master Builders Association, and others to get feedback, and it has been positive. Hope that sometime, maybe quarter 1 or quarter 2, we might have some data that we can share and see what the implication is from that quantitative perspective, and then also would look to do some form of a survey to get a qualitative response from applicants who've gone through the process.
And so after this counter opens on Monday, you'll be fully in 412.
Yes. Each agency, in terms of staff working regularly in the building, is being phased in, but the counter will be open. It might be maybe into December potentially, before all 3 agencies are in normal daily operations, but the counter will be up and running in space for everyone who is supporting it.
Great to hear. And then is there, I know Sarah always had a chart talking about money in terms of the economic impact. Do we have that? Not to put you on the spot.
No, I think I remember
I'm sure you're
the
just
chart.
as great as your predecessor. I just always liked that chart.
I did not include that. If you're like are looking at our, if I'm recalling, are you thinking the overall our budget and then looking at the fees and projected revenue?
I'm not seeing it. Yeah. I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
Specifically, it was just a chart that talked about, in dollars, the amount of, I think what it was all, everyone has to submit. I think there's some apartments that are based on the amount the project costs.
Yeah, so that might be the slide, potentially.
And that was all calculated.
That might be this slide, potentially. So I don't know if you're the graph, or if maybe, so this is showing the value of construction for the permits that we issued between October and, what is the period? From October last year to September. So on the left-hand side, that's in millions of dollars. So just over $2 billion year to date in the value. If that's not...
no, I think this is it. Let me just look at it for a second.
So try to simplify the graphic so it might be slightly different.
So this is based on, so even for commercial, they put down how much you expect to invest in the project.
Yep.
And what's the reason for that again?
So we base it on value of construction because it's a good metric to understand the complexity of the work. It's similarly used typically for contracts by the contractor or the design professional, typically tied to the value of construction. And it scales relatively. It's proportional, which is helpful.
But is that is like times by a factor, a constant that is then the permit price?
Yeah. So if you look at, it's a little bit further, and I may have glossed over it, and it was presented in a different fashion. It is base fee changes. So the commercial is going from $6 to $7 per thousand, and residential from 5 to 6. And then our examples. So an average new building, commercial building, the average value of construction was $5 million, almost $900,000. The fee under our current schedule would be just over $35,000, and then next year would be just over $41,000. And then it's showing, this chart is just showing examples for a new house. The average cost was just shy of $200,000, and the fee under our current fee schedule would be $1,100. And next year's it would be $1,170. So in some instances, moderate increase, some comparable, or less.
You know, with residential here, I see. So this is in millions. So that'd be, looks like it's 200 million in 2024.
It's probably more around. Sorry, I probably should have kept the data labels. Recollection is, I think that hovers around 500 or 500 to 700 million.
But even this below
sorry, no. I'll get back to you. I'll get you the data later.
Yeah, I guess my point here was just wondering is there a separate graph for residential?
No, it is. It's the yellow line. So
yeah, I know, but it's just like so.
Yeah, understood. That's probably
so much less money. Like to scale, like it's hard to understand.
Understood.
Is there? Yeah, I just would like to see a graph that's more scaled for the residential.
Okay, we can get, and then also the actual labels so you understand.
Yeah,
what
I'm just curious.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, and then I'm just gonna make this question up. Probably will get me in trouble somewhere down the line here. How do you foresee I have to fit in a land bank question. So how do you foresee the, PLI being a good partner with the land bank? Do you think there is some coordination we can do with like dead end properties?
For sure. I think the city as a whole, any agency that's involved with property, need to collaborate together. So the land bank is another tool, and keeping some of those condemned properties off of the demo list and coordinating to see, while PLI may have a concern about this, is this still stable enough that the land bank may be able to step in, and we're already starting to do that at a certain level. So I think collectively, mayor's office, PLI, land bank, URA, city planning, and other agencies are looking at vacant and underutilized properties and how can we coordinate. So we have to. We have limited resources, and it's an issue that is not contained to a single department. So if we're not working closely together, we're not being responsible stewards of money, nor leaders of that you would expect us to do.
And then what's your thoughts on using your police powers to fix like a roof so that we don't have to tear it down 5 years from now?
So that's something that will be a relatively potentially relatively complex discussion with law in terms of whether we can. So the police powers are really tied to when there's a high hazard level. That doesn't necessarily tie to an incident where it's just a maintenance issue. So there may be a path, but I think it's relatively complex. So we've initiated those conversations. Hopefully we can have a better sense of that in the near future.
Yeah, that'd be great. What was the language you used there? It's going to be a hazard?
So our police powers are related to the building causing or posing a hazard to the public or the occupants. If it is a matter of roof maintenance, simply, I don't think we would have the authority to initiate that work. So,
I mean, the basic example is just as a hole in the roof.
Yep. We may be able to. It just the language of the ordinances that we enforce, and then we have not used it in that fashion. So I think there's legal research in it to do, and then the other aspect is contracting and operational. So right now, at least our department is limited to working with contractors who are pre-qualified to demolish a building. I would say they are not likely the most appropriate candidates to fix a roof.
Hey, you have to figure that part out.
Yeah, so I think
everyone needs a roofer. We have one.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just saying, I think it is. It's being discussed, and I think there's potential pathway, but
yeah,
I don't want.
Maybe we would contract out. Just
the contracting would be the easier part of it. I think the bigger question is what legal steps can we take, and can we use it in that fashion?
Yeah, we just got to put the lien on it, and I know that's something that there's some hurdles with, but in terms of our cleaning liens, but hopefully we can get there.
Mm-hmm.
There is, I would think there's a good return on investment.
Yeah, I think there is a collective interest in ensuring that properties are maintained, and particularly roofs, so that we.
Yeah, I gave a roof, but we all know there's porches that are falling down, and
I would
back decks that are pulling at the back.
That's not necessarily going to pull the building down. If there's a large hole in the roof, there's going to.
Well, you would be the expert.
Yeah. I would say, broadly speaking, maintaining structures and ensuring that the shell is maintained is a societal benefit, so that we can maintain precious building stock. In some cases, cannot be replaced in kind. So appropriate for us as a city to create policies to address that need, and hopefully over time shift from the need to demolish buildings to rehabbing or stabilizing.
Yeah, because we can all see a path to fixing that roof, and then
productive use.
Putting that lien on there, and then if some, if the taxes aren't paid, or if it's already not, if it's already delinquent, there is an opportunity to move that over to the land bank, and then get first-time home buyers in there on a construction loan or something. All right, I don't have anything further. You have anything further? We knew you had something. Go ahead.
No other members join us, right? Yeah. No, the last question I meant to ask is, of your department, is anyone working from home? What is the work from home policy in your department?
So almost a majority of our staff are working remotely from home currently, primarily because we did not have an office space to use. So we are working on updating our internal policies, and we'll look to establish the percentage of in-office or on-site work, and we're developing that now. So, but right now, except for administrative staff whose duties can't be performed remotely. Almost all other positions are performing a majority of their work remotely.
All right. Yeah, would like to see that change, and I understand there's restrictions on that and how that works. But as I'm saying in all the other budget briefings, I want us to be a leader in coming back to work.
And we're moving that direction. It just takes some time to get it together.
You need a work to be able to work out of first. So
yeah,
Monday. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Well, if there's no other questions or any other input, do you have anything less to say? You don't have to say anything.
No.
Just want to let everyone know that we will be going into recess here with budget hearings. The next one is Monday, the 18th at 10 a.m. It'll be Public Safety and the Office of Community Health and Safety. Until then, we are in recess. Enjoy the weekend.